The Rip City Drive.
Yeah.
Mike Parker is back. What's going on, Doc?
Well, it's good to hear you say that, to say that you have some affection for me, Chad, because I have felt unloved and forgotten with all the rest in Beaver Nation. We're feeling kind of low right now. So it's good to hear you say that. I appreciate it. And we're just waiting to see what's next. It's been a tough week.
No question. Where do you think is the best landing spot for Oregon State after the demise of the Pac-12?
Well, not that I've given it any thought at all.
Yeah, right.
But, it's about all I am thinking of. I'm grateful for baseball games in the West Coast League. Dwight, I know you'll appreciate the fact that all summer, well, I've been kind of waiting for the unfortunate news that did unfold last week.
Yeah.
Night after night, calling Corvallis Knights baseball games is a form of escape.
Sure.
So that even on, Black Friday, as it were, last week, when the conference disintegrated as we know it, I had a ball game to call that night in Corvallis. Last night I was in Longview calling a playoff game. In a couple of hours I'll be back at Goss calling a West Coast League playoff game. These are ball games of little moment outside of our own world of the West Coast League and the Corvallis Knights, but they have at least riveted my attention and focused my mind on things other than what you just asked me, Chad. So while it's all that I've been thinking about on one level, on another, I've been forced to, because of work and trying to be prepared for a broadcast, thinking about other things. But when I do have time, driving to Longview last night to Story Field at Lower Columbia to call a playoff game, thinking a lot about, I feel ridiculous in what I'm about to say, as I do most of the time in life, but I still kind of like if the Pac-4 that exists now can somehow find a way to stay together. And I don't know, heck, maybe in the last 20 minutes the ACC's invited Stanford and Cal for all I know. But if the four can stay together and add the six available schools, both a combination maybe of SMU and San Diego State and Boise State and Colorado State. Rice is even a player because of their academic status. Tulane, I've heard. Whatever it takes to get to 10, perhaps revisit an Apple deal along those lines. If you still have anchor tenants of four, essential originals from the conference, two charter members in Cal and Oregon State, charter members from 1915 from the league, I still think you have something worth calling a Pac-10 or worth building on. But I'm dubious about those prospects just because of everything I keep reading about Stanford and Cal, either the Big Ten or the ACC. So if we can't hold the four together and add six or to get to 10 or even just, get to a Pac-8 again, I don't know what, other than Scott Barnes with all of his lines out, hoping that, the Big 12 might look favorably upon Oregon State. We've just got to find a way to survive, I think, the next couple of years. And I do think our product on the field, I do think there will be some recognized value about what Oregon State can mean to a more traditional Power 5, conference entity. But I'd like to get there sooner rather than later. I do think this year on the football field is going to help Oregon State's cause because I think the Beavs are going to show plenty of value again as an outstanding football program. And I do think that's important and that's going to help us. But for now, for me, to answer your question, I'd like to see the four stay together and find value in six other schools to create a Pac-10 that can go forward, maybe, certainly with a strong diminishment, but still something worth building on, I think.
Mike, how important is it, do you think, to be urgent and have a sense of urgency in finding a new home? Do you think it will affect recruiting and the budgets, all these things?
Yeah, I heard you at the beginning of the show, Dwight, and without doubt, it's ultimately all about what you just touched on. And so already, I'm sure already there's been an impact on all of the things you talked about. So the urgency is evident. The urgency, Scott Barnes, bless his heart, he had a cardiac event this past late spring, and now he's got to deal with this. When cardiologists and people tell you if you've had something like that, minimize stress, minimize stress. I'm not sure how this is. Can you imagine just what's on his plate right now? What he's trying to navigate us through, what he's trying to deal with is not exactly what the doctor would order. So, he's in an incredible, difficult position. And I'm hoping that but I do trust him. I think he's done amazing things to get the Research Stadium project pushed through and done during the pandemic. I think he's done a remarkable job and hired good people and created a situation. He hired Jonathan Smith, when there were others who were saying, the kid's young, he's never been a head coach. Scott saw something in Jonathan and hired him. I think that's to his great vision and credit. I think we've got the right man with the sense of urgency, Dwight, that has to be present and is. But, I don't know. Yes, of course, it's very urgent to have a landing spot and to have it done as soon as possible. But I'm not sure I want the Beavs just to settle and slide into, let's say, well, the Mountain West wants you to go if there's a chance to hold a coalition together of the four that currently exist and find a way to go forward still as a Pac-8/Pac-10 type conference rather than just say, well, we need to tell everybody where we're going to be and it's going to be the Mountain West. That's not a terrible place for Oregon State to be, but it's a big come down, no doubt.
We're talking to the voice of the Beavs, Mike Parker, here on the Rip City Drive. Like you, Dwight and I are excited about the team this year because we think the football team is going to be exceptionally good. What's your take on DJU so far and how you think he's going to fit in with the team this year?
It was interesting, Chad. I've been to a couple of practices now. The night schedule and then a family event has kept me from being at every one. But what I saw today was really encouraging from DJ's standpoint. I just saw, I'd be looking at other groups working or talking to somebody and see a ball flying downfield and immediately, who threw that? Turned and looked, and it's DJ.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To see the ball coming out of his hand, to see a growing command of the offense. I don't know everything that he's checking to, but clearly he's checking into things at the line of scrimmage. And in the spring, the learning curve in that playbook, I think, was a little bit difficult, by his own admission. And there may have even been a slight degree of disappointment about how he was assimilating all of that and handling all of that. And Aiden Childs and the future that he provides, and Ben Gulbranson, who's better. Ben's arm looks better. He looks stronger and better than he did at the end of last year. But DJ excites me. This guy is physically imposing. His arm is strong. He was making good reads and throws today, touch passes, as well as throwing the deep ball with authority. So between, what he'll bring at that position, a strong offensive line, a running back room, even without Jam Griffin, that still looks pretty good, a receiving core that's got a lot of different dimensions to it. I'm excited about what's ahead on offense.
That's what I was going to ask you about. The offense looks great, and I'm wondering what your biggest concern would be about the team, and does it happen to be that young secondary? What do you think? You've seen a ton of games down there. What are you expecting?
Well, it's always difficult to be great in every area, so that where it appears the Beavs have made the biggest jump on defense is at the line of scrimmage. There's, where they were when Jonathan got this thing, guys. How porous were the Beavers against the run? And it was as bad as I've seen in all the years here. Even in some of the darker years at Oregon State, Rocky Long and others always had some pretty salty and good defenses that would pressure the passer, good secondaries. Those early years on defense were painful to watch. But what Jonathan has done with his staff in building up the line of scrimmage, there's a lot of guys both at the outside linebacker spots, the inside positions at tackle, who are big, fast, physical. There's going to be a huge difference there, but where they've gained there, they may suffer a bit of a drop off, Dwight, as you're talking about in the secondary, but I think they're well coached there. I think they've recruited pretty well there, and I think they're going to be fine. And because they may drop off a little bit, but they may not need their corners and safeties to be quite as locked down as they have been, because they're going to get pressure and be better up front and take a little bit of pressure off the back end. So it's not perfect. Maybe if you had last year's secondary with what they've accomplished with their front seven this year, but I think the overall balance is still going to be very good on defense.
We're talking with Mike Parker, voice of the Beavs here on the Rip City Drive. I really believe there are 5 teams right now who can make a case that we're going to go out and win the Pac-12 championship this year. I think the Beavs are one of those 5. Is that how you see it, or what's your take at the top of the conference?
Well, yeah, I've been concerned. I think I felt that 2 weeks ago. I felt that even before last Friday. I will say that after the news on Friday, I've been a little concerned until today's practice, in a sense. It's almost as though watching the team at work in the bubble that they're in at Prothro Field, when for 2 hours they're not peppered with any thoughts or questions about, well, where are you going to be, where are you going to land, what's going to happen, what do you think of this, what do you think of that? They're just young men out homing their skills, working on their craft, practicing hard, playing hard, getting coached up. I was worried that there might be a loss of energy, or, oh my gosh, woe is us. You know what I mean? Like we fans are all kind of going through. The young men are not. So I'm encouraged by the work I'm seeing put in and the enthusiasm at practice. I've seen no diminishment, even if our own spirits are sagging as people who care about the program and have been around this conference for decades. I've known the conference since 1967 when I was a big fan of OJ and the USC Trojans. I mean, this conference is my life. So to see what's happening to it breaks my heart. But for these young men in August of 2023, I think certainly they're concerned about the long-term future and all that. But I think they're all in, and I think they're going with the Tom Berenger Major League after, when he says to the team, well, there's only one thing left to do: win the whole adjective deleted thing.
Yeah.
When the Indians are in the situation they're in that movie, win the whole thing. I almost feel like that's a rallying point and cry for these guys, not because they think they need to save the program in so doing, but I think they think they're good enough to compete for the Pac-12 title. And if they're going to compete for the Pac-12 title, they might as well, they can beat everybody on their schedule. I believe that. They believe it. So we just got to kind of hold off the malaise that comes with the news we've had recently and watch Jonathan and this group have, I think, another really big year that's coming.
All right, the voice of your Oregon State Beavers, Mike Parker. Hey, Doc, always a pleasure. I'm glad you were out at practice and felt a boost of energy from seeing the young guys compete. So thank you for your time, and we'll catch up soon. But we can't wait for football season, man. This is going to be a good one.
I agree, and look forward to seeing you guys down here at a practice soon. Thanks a lot, Dwight, Chad. I've got a Knights baseball game to call. Go Knights, and let's keep this thing rolling.
Yes,
there you go.
Talk soon. Thanks,
There you go.
Guys.
The great Mike Parker.